In this section of the Student Parent Handbook, we will continue to review the Code of Conduct. In this Code of Conduct presentation covering the Parent-Student Handbook sections will be omitted as a result of this information being covered in previous handbook productions. Also, additional comments and information may be supplemental to a specific slide. Students are held responsible for all of the information in this presentation and found in the handbook. Therefore, we appreciate everyone's undivided attention. The Code of Student Conduct outlines the consequences for behaviors that are disruptive to the school environment, including those school-sponsored events that take place off campus. The Code of Conduct applies to students at school, on the bus, outside of school with your class or teachers, and at any school activity on or off school property. It is the responsibility of both student and parents to familiarize themselves with the Student Handbook, FHSD Code of Conduct, and elements of the Safe Schools Act. The FHSD Code of Conduct is available online on the district and school websites. Some school events, however, such as dances and other specified activities, are intended for Howell North students only, although guests may attend with principal's approval. Students attending either public or school activities will be held accountable for their actions. Any inappropriate behavior as defined in the Student Code of Conduct will not be tolerated. Furthermore, any student attending an activity and leaving the event before its conclusion will not be readmitted. Students are expected to carry their school ID at all school activities. Students are responsible for their conduct at extracurricular and school-related activities and events. In this regard, the board-approved Code of Conduct applies to any and all curricular, extracurricular, and school-sponsored activities, on or off campus, day or night. Students choosing to violate any portion of the Code of Conduct will be held accountable in the same manner as they would during the regular school day. Students are not allowed to leave school event and re-enter at a later time for any reason. Students must be present during the school day if attending an after-school activity or event. If an event takes place on Saturday, he or she must attend school on Friday. Any exception to this rule must have the prior approval of an administrator. Students serving a suspension, ISAP and/or OSS, are not permitted to participate in or attend any school event on campus or off campus. Violations of the rule will result in additional discipline. In this section, I will go over dances. It is very important that everyone listens to these guidelines. These guidelines should serve as notice and will be explained to students. Students who fail to follow these rules and guidelines may be escorted from the dance immediately with no refund. Tickets must be purchased in advance. Tickets are not sold at the door. No one will be admitted without a ticket. Students and parent must sign dance contract prior to purchasing ticket. Must be a student in good standing with no outstanding fines. Therefore, that means you need to have your fines paid for before you can attend the dance and buy a ticket. If a student leaves, he or she may not return. No chemical substances, tobacco, or alcohol beverages of any kind are allowed. Students who have been drinking or using drugs will be subject to arrest and disciplinary action based upon the District Code of Conduct. The Francis Howell School District Code of Conduct applies to all extracurricular activities. Students will be expected to adhere to the Francis Howell North dress code. Failure to comply with the school dress code may result in non-admission to a school-sponsored dance, including prom. Proper respect should be paid to all sponsors, and you should do everything possible to help sponsors make all school activities a success. Students may bring a guest after pre-registering with the school. However, a student attending a middle school may not attend a high school dance. In addition, no one 21 or older will be permitted to attend school dances. Students and guests will be required to show a school ID or driver's license upon arrival. Students must arrive within the first 45 minutes from the start time. Students suspected of being under the influence of alcohol will be subject to a breathalyzer test. Dances held at school will start at 7 p.m. and end at 10 p.m. Prom is held off school grounds. Fundamentals of Hal North sportsmanship. This attitude of sportsmanship should be reflected by all spectators. 2. No matter what their personal feelings of loyalty may be to one or the other of the teams in the contest. Parents and or fans are not allowed on the playing field, sidelines, or court at any time during the contest. Students are responsible for their conduct at extracurricular and school-related activities and events. In this regard, the board-approved student code of conduct applies to any and all curricular, extracurricular, and school-sponsored activities on or off the campus, day or night. Students choosing to violate any portion of the code of conduct will be held accountable in the same manner as they would during the regular school day. Students suspected of being under the influence of alcohol will be subject to a breathalyzer test. In addition to the code of conduct, students are asked to observe the following rules at home sporting events. No stomping on bleachers, no amplified noisemakers are permitted at any time. Bells, clickers, horns, or similar noisemakers will not be permitted at inside events. No taunting of individual players or officials will be tolerated. No derogatory, distracting, or demeaning chants or cheers should be directed at the opposing team. No throwing of any object onto the floor or field from the bleachers is acceptable. Only cheerleaders are permitted to use megaphones. At no time is profane or obscene language acceptable. Do not stand or sit in the aisles. Do not block the movement of fellow spectators to and from the stands. Those students who leave an event will not be readmitted. Students are encouraged to cheer opposing teams and officials when introduced. Cheer all good plays, be a positive influence on everyone around them. Treat all opposing players and fans courteously. Be humble in victory and gracious in accepting defeat, and be expected to respect the playing of the national anthem. All children enrolled in 8th grade or younger must be accompanied by and directly supervised by an adult to be admitted to or remain at a varsity football game. Transportation to away events. The school district's optimal goal is the requirement that all students arrive and return from regular daily classroom instruction as well as school-sponsored events on school student buses and under the supervision of school personnel. Regarding the transportation of students by private vehicle, the owner of the vehicle agrees. The owner of the vehicle will transport no more passengers, including students and the driver, than which the vehicle is designed to carry. The number of seat belts in the vehicle indicates the number of passengers. All passengers will be secured in the seat belts. The vehicle is licensed according to state laws. The driver of the vehicle has a valid Missouri operator's license. The vehicle has liability limits of $100,000 for injury per person and $300,000 per accident. When transportation services are provided in a private vehicle, i.e. any motor vehicle not regularly used by the general public in the transportation of persons or property for hire, there shall be a written contract between the school district and the owner of the vehicle. In the event of an accident, claims are made against the vehicle owner's insurance company. These rules apply to students, teachers, volunteers, parents, booster club member, etc. who transport students to events, practices, field trips, or any school-sponsored activity. The administration reserves the right to deny any request for transportation in a private automobile without cost. Now we move to the dress code. The Board Policy 2651 states the following. Board of Education expects students' dress and grooming to be neat, clean, and in keeping with community standards so that each student may share in promoting a positive, healthy, and safe atmosphere within the district. The expectation includes the school day and school-sponsored extracurricular activities. The board may require students to wear a school uniform. Students shall observe modes of dress and standards of personal grooming that are in conformity with the educational environment and necessary to maintain an orderly and safe atmosphere for all students. Apparel is expected to conform to reasonable student standards of modesty, and as such, no excessive or inappropriate areas of skin or undergarments may be exposed. No apparel or grooming which presents a safety concern is permitted. No apparel displaying messages that are gang-related, sexually explicit, vulgar, violent, or advocating illegal activities is permitted. Further, no clothing or personal grooming that disrupts or can be forecasted to disrupt the educational environment is permitted. At Francis Howell North, students are asked to dress in a reasonable manner that is in good taste. The final decision regarding the appropriateness of a student dress will be determined by the school. For safety reasons, shoes must be worn at all times. Students who violate the dress code will be sent to the nurse's office to change into more appropriate clothing, or a parent will be contacted to provide a change of clothing. In addition, students will be subject to disciplinary action based upon the school code of conduct. Clothing that violates the 7 B's may cause distraction and will not be tolerated for either males or females. The 7 B's: bra, breast, belly, bottoms, backs, boxers, bedroom wear. Students are not permitted to wear hats, bandanas, hood, or other head apparel, clothing, jewelry that displays obscene or inappropriate printing, either explicit or implied, colors, clothing, or jewelry depicting gang identification, clothing which shows underwear or undergarments, clothing that sags, decorative jewelry that is inappropriate or dangerous, mask or face paint, any clothing that is distracting or disruptive to the learning environment. The following items are not to be worn alone: spaghetti straps, halters, midriff, shirts, blouses, off-the-shoulder tops, and muscle shirts. Again, I will reiterate this for those of you who have already had issues with this. You are not permitted to wear hats or hoods during school. For when you have a substitute teacher, substitute teachers are to be accorded the same respect as regular classroom teachers. Any student failing to maintain a proper relationship with a substitute teacher will be dealt with accordingly. The responsibility is on the student to treat a substitute with respect and courtesy that is due to all persons at Francis Howell North High School. Students on campus after 2:30 p.m. must be involved in a school-sponsored and supervised activity. Students are not allowed to loiter or hang out in the building after school. If serving an after-school detention, students must make arrangements to leave campus promptly at its conclusion. Students waiting for a ride must do so in the main lobby. Exceptions for staying past 2:30 may be made on an emergency basis through the student principal. Again, I want to reiterate that those of you who are waiting for a ride must wait in the main lobby. Now to care of school property. Students are held responsible for proper care of school property. The defacing or destruction of school property is a violation of Missouri state law. Any person who willfully defaces or destroys any school property can be expected to pay the actual amount for repair or replacement according to the Missouri law and face appropriate disciplinary action. Next, we will talk about cell phones and electronic devices, which is always a topic of concern. If a student chooses to bring cell phones or other electronic devices to school, they are not to be seen, heard, or used during class time unless authorized by the teacher. Cell phones and electronic devices will be collected and turned into the main office if they are seen or heard without teacher permission. A student will receive a warning for the first offense and be allowed to pick up the device in the office after school. Students will receive 1 detention on the second infraction and will be allowed to pick up the phone at the conclusion of the school day. Any subsequent infractions will result in parents picking up the device and further discipline. Students may only use cell phones and electronic devices before, after school, between classes, and at lunch. Students who bring these items to school do so at their own risk. The school is not responsible for lost, broken, or stolen phone, headphones, or other electronic devices. Electronic device misuse. Inappropriate, unauthorized use that captures, transmits, or duplicates an unauthorized picture of school staff, students, or school documents, including electronic cheating, will result in discipline according to the FHSD Code of Conduct. Now we will briefly discuss private property. Please be respectful of your neighbor's property. Students walking to or from campus must not trespass by cutting through or loitering on neighborhood yards. Homeowners are encouraged to notify the police when students infringe on their property right. Thank you for your undivided attention throughout this presentation. Your teacher will now complete this portion of the FHN Parent-Student Handbook by going over pages 43 through 53.